So I joined Reddit just so I could post this comment. And read more no sleep stories of course, but still. Anyway, I used to work at a lot of conventions when I was about 20. I lived in the Delaware Valley. My manager lived in upstate PA and there were a lot of car, truck and hunting shows that way that his agency would book shows for us. Anyway, my parents were out of town and I was watching their dog, Blue. He was an 80-pound English Shepherd and an alpha. He didn't respect me much but he would have died protecting me BC he knew I was Pat. Anyway, there was a show that weekend and I usually stayed at my manager's house in his guest house for the weekend shows. I had to take my dog WB since I was watching him. I got there the Friday before the convention and took my dog for a walk down the road. It was dusk and gorgeous and way more wooded and secluded than my hometown so I was enjoying it. We walked a fair way down the road and then I decided to take him off the path and into a little clearing I could vaguely see through the trees. So we get into this clearing and there is lots of tall grass and it is dusk so visibility is low. He is sniffing around and generally enjoying himself and then at the same time we both notice the grass at the opposite side of the clearing moving. Probably 200 to 300 feet away. He immediately stiffens and lets out this visceral growl that I have never heard him make before. Not just the, someone is at the door, growl, but if our lives are in immediate danger and I will attack and kill if need be, growl. So I start getting nervous and back up a bit. I'm thinking from the size of the movement, the grass was a little over waist high, that it's maybe a cougar or wolf or whatever my imagination is scaring me with. In retrospect I wish it was a cougar or wolf. Anyway, I am trying to get Blue out of the clearing and back to the road but he is frozen stiff and not budging. He is in full flight or fight mode and he's obviously chosen the latter. The thing is moving around, kind of foraging and what seems to be looking for food. While it's moving back and forth I catch a glimpse of it really fast through a sparse area of grass and it looks seriously like one of the werewolves from TV. It was mostly naked with a ridge of fur down its back and its face kind of looked like a hyena. In all honesty it could have been a huge dog or wolf with mange. But its legs were all wrong. Most canine-like animals walk on their toes with the first bend in their legs being their ankle. The second bend is their knee, and their hips aren't visible the way ours are. So their legs look like this. Less than underscore greater than, poor rendering, I know. Anyway, this thing's legs were backwards. Its feet pointed backwards and the first bend in its leg pointed forwards. The second, that should have been its knee, pointed backwards. Like this. Less than underscore so, I dragged my dog by the scruff of his neck and jogged home at a brisk pace. It never noticed we were there. My only logical explanation was that maybe it was a large dog or wolf with mange and a severe genetic defect. But I have done a lot of work in dog rescue and I've never seen a defect like that. That being said, it might exist, but any kind of defect I've ever seen of that magnitude has rendered the dog immobile. This thing was walking and trotting like nobody's business. Still don't know WTF the thing was and would prefer there to be a logical explanation but I haven't really found one. Scariest story I have is camping in northern Michigan with my dad. My grandma lived on lake in a house near Gaylord, MI which my parents and I would frequent every Friday through Sunday for well over a decade until my grandma sold the place. Our routine would be to pack up all necessary equipment for a 3-day camping trip and fit it into our rucks. Grab the mountain bikes and head off to one of the state forests. We then would find a random 2-track leading into the woods, particularly we always aimed for those that looked like they haven't been driven on in years due to overgrowth. Find a place to park, offload bikes and leave. General made our own trail when we could as goal was to find a stream or river and set up camp in any clearing we could find. Usually ended up just in a clearing as we never went more than 10 to 15 miles from the truck. One time we actually came across an old foundation of an assuming was once a home. No trail or road remotely near for miles. Right on a stream, made of rocks about the size of a brick. There was a small wooden shack IDK maybe 10 feet or so from the foundation, maybe 4 or 4.5 feet tall. I remember my dad had to bend over and I just hunched, I was just a kid, to get inside. Inside were rusted out gun barrels galore, fishing poles, snowshoes, bedding, old pots and pans, etc. Clearly the area hadn't been used in a very long time. Just cool stuff for a 12-year-old kid. We set up camp about 20 feet away, caught a few bullfrogs and cooked them up for dinner along with some pan-fried nachos on the small Coleman we had with those old school mini propane tanks. No light pollution. The night sky was amazing. Could see so many stars. To this day my favorite part of camping is after dark. That night shortly before we went to bed, we tied up all of our food and hung it up about 15 feet or so in the air over a branch like you see in movies. Hell, maybe a bear. Which, we have seen all of these and more on our trips. Sound carries pretty far, so Dad wasn't too concerned. We hear it throughout the night, but the sounds started getting almost baby-like. The only way I can describe it is imagine a baby whining softly. Add this with very deep huffs and grunting. Periodically we would bear a high-pitched, sharp but very short cry. Sounded to me like a baby screaming. Just creepy. Throughout the night these sounds come and go. Dad loaded the Remington and I had my little 20-gauge small game ready to go just in case. My first gun and my first time taking it with us on one of our trips. We eventually fell asleep. We wake up to nothing too out of the ordinary except a stench of rotting meat, like a dead animal. We figured an animal died and we just could smell it on the wind. We would come across coyote kills sometimes or some other animals, so we didn't think anything of it. We go outside to a beautiful sunrise and the sound of flies. Dad just figure we lost the food and the flies are on it now. Dad walks around back by the food bag and stops abruptly and just says, "I still remember it," very slowly. What the fuck? Behind our tent are 3 deer strung up, skinned and gutted. The deer were hung on 3 different branches on the same tree our bag was on, which was untouched. Each head was cut off and set on top of the guts. Each head was pointed directly at our tent. No one around. No footprints, no blood trail, nothing. Just 3 deer, hanging by vine. Not twine or rope, vines. Dad grabbed the gun and went to try and spot tracks or blood. He is a phenomenal tracker and has been a guide on a few occasions for experience hunts in the UP. He found nothing. We heard nothing in the night either. Creepy as shit. I was incredibly spooked. Dad was too as we packed up that Saturday and headed back to the truck. No incidents on the way back. Just a normal half-day trip back the truck. Drove to DNR station and reported it. I just remember the guy looking at me, then my dad, shaking his head slowly and picking up the phone to call whoever, and all he said was something like, "Another skinned animal sighting near the whatever Steve." Clearly it happened before, but what the hell? Dad never did find out if it was someone or something. The fact that my dad couldn't find any blood spotting or trails where those deer would have been dragged or hoof prints where they perhaps walked is what to this day said baffles him the most. We still talk about it over a beer every now and then. He also doesn't know where the vines came from because he looked all around the area and there were no trees with any vines anywhere around.